Hey, everybody. Thank you for tuning into the Stuff I Heard podcast. I'm your host, Joshua Peak, and I have with me today Joshua Treadaway. Say hi, Josh.
Hello.
He is dressed up as Boba Fett with his helmet on. He is Darth Helmet. Not really.
Never show this part again, ever.
Never show this part to anyone ever again. Just erase this part. Yeah. That's a Spaceballs reference if anybody doesn't know. If anybody hasn't watched Spaceballs, please go watch it. It is super hilarious. I don't know where you can find it, but I'm sure it's out there on the interweb somewhere. Today was kind of unusual because I slept in.
I noticed that.
Yeah, I walked into the kitchen and my wife goes, I was wondering when you were going to get up. We've had a weird weekend of sleep deprivation. We went to go visit my wife's family, and in the process, we took our grandson with us, and he liked to stay up late. So it was one of those things of trying to motivate him to go to sleep. And then once I went to sleep, I'd end up going to sleep before all three of them. My wife would end up getting Jackson to go to sleep, and then she'd come in there, and by then I was snoring, and she was like, well, I guess I'm not sleeping in the night. So it's kind of a rough weekend for her, especially. And she drove back. We left about 4:00 in the morning yesterday to head back home. When we got home, we all basically came in the house, dropped our stuff, and went to bed. And I slept yesterday until afternoon. But I stayed awake, during the car ride to try to keep her awake. We got home, shortly after 8 or whatever, and slept till noon. And I felt fine, but then last night I zonked out hard, and apparently I didn't wake up till almost noon today. So either my body's healing or it's recuperating from all of the travel or whatever. I didn't get the chance to podcast on New Year's. I was going to. This is episode 280. I was going to podcast on New Year's, and I made an effort to. I did 36 minutes by myself, and it's all gone. All the video's there. There's no audio. Looking into, I don't know where it went. It's on my computer because I can see where there's megabytes saved, but there's no audio to it. When I went into the settings because I did it on Zoom, because Zoom's platform is set up so that if you want to do one by yourself, it actually works pretty good for recording the audio and video, and you can separate them. You can adjust the levels. There's all kind of little technical things to it that I like. I could have done it just straight with GarageBand, and I didn't think about that, but Zoom is actually a little bit easier for me to do it. I don't know how a lot of people do it out there. I'm sure they have like OBS running or something like that. OBS to me is still something that I'm learning. I haven't done a lot with it, but it's basically a broadcast studio user-friendly thing for people who understand what they're doing. It's user-friendly. For me, I have no idea what the heck I'm doing. But we got something going on.
Yeah, we got a FedEx guy in front of the house. The dog's going nuts. Give me one second.
No, not the FedEx guy. All right, so we're going to take a little break. Treadaway is muted for a second, which is really weird looking at him in the costume because I can't read his face at all. All I see is the mask. I didn't think about that part. He and I talked about doing a helmet podcast, and I thought, wow, that'd be funny. But if we're both wearing helmets, you can't see our faces. It's not so funny. It's funny for like a minute.
It's better that way. They can't see my face. See, that's the point. This is a much better face than I normally put on.
Okay. So you mentioned that you had something going on with some tubes. Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm fine now. Last Monday, I woke up and had a bloody nose for the first time. And it stopped in the morning. I was able to stop it pretty quickly. Then about 3:00 in the afternoon, it happened again. And I, clotted it up. It closed up, no problem. Well, last Monday night, for the first time ever, Chrissy decided that she wanted to try Wagyu beef. So I think I showed y'all pictures of that on the, on our share page. Well, I'm guessing that, my continued drinking that I do a little too much sometimes anyway, along with the Wagyu beef, caused my blood pressure to shoot through the roof. And I started a nosebleed about midnight and couldn't stop it at all. About 2:00, I started kind of freaking out a little bit. and I took my blood pressure, my little home blood pressure kit, and it was higher than it ever should have been in ever.
Oh.
Just between me and you, it was right around 220 over 160.
Between me, you, and the internet. Okay.
Well, yes, now the internet, but you know what I mean. So so I was forced to go to the emergency room, and in the emergency room they put a pack because they couldn't get it to seal because the blood pressure was so high. They had to put a pack in it after they fed me liquid blood pressure medications to get it down to at least a point where they could at least try to fix it.
Yeah.
And it was supposed to be removed on Friday night or Friday afternoon by a doctor, but happened to be that Friday turned out to be the January 1st and nobody was open. So the only thing I could possibly choose to do was go to the emergency room and pay another emergency fee just to have them remove it, just in case it started bleeding after it was removed.
Oh, okay.
So I decided to wait. Well, I got home from work the next day and noticed that the pack was it was like a balloon that has too much air in it, and little by little it's starting to just slightly, fill out a little bit.
Yeah.
So it started to come out of my nose, and it looked really disgusting. And I'm like, I can't go to work and have people look at like that. This is making people disgusting.
Yeah.
So I talked to Greg actually that morning, and I asked him, hey, what's the deal? Can I take this thing out myself? And he's like, I wouldn't recommend it, but it's not something that you want to deal with in case it started bleeding. So I tried to find anything I could, and I couldn't find anyone open. So finally, I decided, you know what? I'm 5 minutes away from the emergency room. If it starts to bleed, I'll just run there. So I took it out myself, and it worked out fine. So I saved myself $500, but don't recommend it.
I had to take a picture of you with the helmet on.
Well,
wow. So that's kind of scary.
Yeah, it's two scares in 2 years. So I've decided that I'm going to try to be a little bit more careful on my diet.
Well, not just the diet. We'll call it diet.
Well, the lifestyle changing as far as yes, I'm cutting down on my drinking as well. Yes, yeah. I also the biggest problem is with switching new jobs, I lost my insurance. And so I didn't take the time to go to the doctor to get my blood pressure medication refilled.
Oh, geez. Okay.
And 7-8 years ago, I did that and it wasn't a problem. But now I'm at an age where I've got to be a little bit more, responsible about doing those things, especially when I have tendency for high blood pressure, even when I was a kid.
Yeah, it's one of those things where once you're like predisposed or whatever, then it's more of a chance that you're going to have to deal with that for the rest of your life, no matter your lifestyle choices. But the lifestyle choices are kind of aiding in that a little bit, especially with the bleeding. It won't stop. That's the thinning of the blood. But you know that.
Right. Well, and like I said, I did get that, and I do understand that now. And I understood it then, but I understand it a lot more now. So I'm back on. So the emergency doc sent me a prescription for my blood pressure meds. I'm back on the blood pressure meds.
Okay.
And I plan to go to my doctor, my nurse practitioner that I use, once I get close to being out of this and get back on my regular blood pressure meds as well. And
what's the thing beside you that's poking out in the screen this far? What was that?
That was my joke. So New Year's, when you were going to do the podcast, and I had the pack in my nose, and I told you I didn't want to do the YouTube video thing because of the nose. I thought it would disgust some of your people. I went and found this.
Right.
It was upstairs in a shelf. And so I was like, well, it's New Year's. I'm going to want to drink something. So this is my Gamecock cup with a very large fucking straw. And I was just going to go, that didn't quite work as well as I wanted it to. Here we go.
That way you're not showing your face. I get it.
So I was going to bring in the New Year drinking my champagne through a straw.
I got you.
That was the whole point of the mask. And now I've had it down. I'm like, I got to at least put it on for part of the podcast. So, but this is the way.
Okay.
So, Happy New Year.
Thanks, bud. Happy New Year. Yeah, I did 36 minutes of me basically looking in my notebook at the last year and the things that I've gone through. And it was interesting. Some of it was highlights of things that I'd forgotten about, and some of it was kind of boring, I'll be honest. So maybe it was a good thing the episode got lost. But, one of the biggest changes that happened during 2020, of course, is the pandemic had forced me to start using Zoom and to start using, different equipment and to get more retroactive and learn new things. And it was sort of the thing that I mentioned during the year, which was, if you weren't adapting to the changes, then you were going to be left behind, wondering, oh no, the world just passed me by and I had no choice. Well, you do have a choice, and you can learn and you can adapt and you can say, I'm going to defeat this. It's not going to defeat me. And you can think outside the box, and that's what it takes sometimes. But with the new year, like, one of the things that I was most excited about was talking about, Mace Windu and the fact that he could have his own show, and that they're talking about a possibility of not only him playing an older Mace Windu, but having a younger actor play a younger him, so that they could do maybe a flashback sequence of he's doing this thing now, and then he's thinking back onto when he became that. And so there's a rumor that that's going to be sort of what that is, similarly to Lando Calrissian having Donald Glover and Billy Dee playing Lando. There's an opportunity for that. So I watched. I don't know. I sent you a link to this chick on YouTube called Star Wars Meg. She does a really good job of breaking up all of her conversations into like 4 or 5 minute conversations, and whereas you and I do a good hour and a half of talking about all of our possibilities, she's actually really smart and can do the production side of it and just show you clips. You never see her face, not one time. And she's like, I'm going to talk about this in an English accent, and you're going to love it, because they say things like buttocks. And it's genius, because every one of her videos has got, 50,000 views within the first day. And it's all video of stuff you've seen. But production wise, like, it's really smart, because she'll show you everything she's talking about. And I don't know if she records the audio first and then figures out the timeline and shows video and clips it into sections. But she obviously either works in editing or has somebody that works in editing that just is really familiar with how to do that. And licensing wise, I'm sure that Star Wars and Disney is okay with that, because all it is basically a commercial promotion for their shows, for you to watch their shows.
All right. Once they put it out there, it's open content.
Right. Yeah. Sort of.
I mean, yeah, but I'm saying, like, obviously they could, some kind of copyright infringement. But
well, if it's little cutaway scenes, yeah, like 15-second scenes or whatever, or they're showing you someone just say a line. I mean, that's not stealing anything from the movie. It is, the intellectual property still exists on its own. She's making her own content at that point, but it's really smart, and it made me wish that I knew how to do more of that. But in watching her content, she made a comment that I didn't think about until the discussion about Mace Windu coming back, was that Finn could be Mace Windu's son. Because he has the Force, because the timeline actually fits that. Donald Glover or whoever's going to play Lando. Lando didn't have the Force, but there was the idea that maybe he could have, had a kid with somebody who had the Force or whatever. But the idea that Mace Windu had the Force and had a kid later on after, towards the decline of his life, and now Finn has the Force, that kind of makes sense.
Well, there's some rumor, and I can't remember exactly where I read it now, but apparently Disney is working on trying to do that based on the idea of Mace Windu's the one that saved Grogu.
Yeah. Well, there's that theory. There's also the theory that maybe R2 saved Grogu. They've also named a few others that were in the area at the time, unknown Jedi that they've mentioned, I guess, in the series. But Favreau was coined to saying it's going to be someone that we're familiar with, that was on the Jedi Council. So it could even be Yoda himself.
Could be.
There could be a discussion about Yoda. They've said that they're going to bring back Yoda in some of these shows. So there's going to be a conversation, not Force Yoda, but actual Yoda, of him coming back and saying, there was a time in my life when, yes, I had a kid or whatever. And I mean, it wouldn't be unheard of. We've seen it happen with Anakin. We've heard talks of it happening with other Jedi. They leave the order, or they have a weakness like Anakin did. And you just say, yeah, well, I got a kid. I mean, I'm human, or I'm whatever Yoda is. But I I've been going really deep into this and watching multiple videos of people breaking down every section of the shows that we watched. And I'm like, that's basically what Treadaway and I did for several episodes, but we did it like at ADD speed. I mean, so, you know, it was entertaining to watch. And, you know, I recommend everybody go check out Star Wars Meg on YouTube, because she does a really good job. And she puts out, you know, several episodes a day almost, and really goes into depth of, you know, why somebody feels a certain way. Like Moff Gideon, whenever they mention the fact that Moff Gideon recognizes that that's probably Luke coming towards him and he looks terrified. It's like, well, yeah, because during his timeline, you know, he saw Luke not only defeat the dark side and the Emperor, but, you know, destroy the Death Star once again. Yeah, 2 Death Stars in a row. I mean, so if anybody's going to be afraid of somebody, then anybody on the dark side should be afraid of Luke Skywalker. You know, it's like,
although technically the second Death Star Luke didn't blow up, but he was still part of the regime anyway.
It's still part of it. Yeah. He was part of the plan. He was the, hey, look at this fist, while they blew it up from the inside. But shout out to Lando. Still, one of the coolest scenes ever is flying the Millennium Falcon inside of the Death Star, where it's going and barely missing everything as he's flying in these girders and stuff. And I'm like, holy crap. Yeah. They never glazes over that really easily. It's like, yeah, no big deal.
Until you play a video game and have to fly the Millennium Falcon through the Death Star. Then it's not fun.
Yeah. You wipe out a lot. But I'm super excited for all of these things to come about. And also, with Boba Fett coming back into the universe, there's been conversations of him showing up into not only his own story, but into 4 or 5 other stories, because that's one thing Favreau loves, is cross-pollination of characters.
Well, that's barely basically what they're trying to do is create a Marvel universe.
Well, I don't know if you heard this, but I heard it was also because after the success of The Mandalorian last year, they also had a huge failure in the fact that a good 90% of the people who signed up for Disney Plus canceled as soon as The Mandalorian ended. And when it gave you selections as to why, everyone selected other and put The Mandalorian season is over. This is the way. So they knew that they had a responsibility then to go, okay, so like the adults that we want on board here are not signing up just to watch all of our content anymore. They need this new stuff. They need new material to get behind. And if we're going to hit this sweet spot, we got to start coming up with some material quickly. So, I mean, this is sort of, Jon Favreau deserves like a special award from Disney as saving the whole company bit right now because of the COVID. You know, their parks are not up to speed like they were. And, you know, without this Disney Plus money coming in, they'd really be, in trouble.
They'd be up the creek.
Yeah. So, and I'm sure at the end of season 2, you know, they have more original content out there to watch, but it's still not to where it's going to be once the Star Wars ensemble starts to come out, the expanded universe, all these other shows. Then you're going to get people that's going to sign up and they're going to stay signed up. You know, like we were talking about before, whenever TV started becoming an a la carte type thing of, I want to watch this and I want to watch that. I don't want to watch your thing forever. I don't want to pay that forever. You can pick and choose what you want to watch. There may come a time where people drop Netflix just to go, oh, I could use the $30 to watch Disney for a few months. I'll pick up Netflix later. I mean, Netflix has got to feel that burdened and that realization of, hey, if we don't stay on top of what we're doing, we might get left behind. I mean, it's so unusual to say that, thinking of how dominant Netflix had been for so long. But when other companies started seeing what they were doing and started emulating it, they had to know that competition was coming. And if I were a stockholder in Netflix, I'd be a little worried right now. I'd be like, oh, crap, what are they going to do? Now, to be fair, Netflix still comes out with really great shows. They still spend a lot to take big swings and to make great content. And they do make good content. I'm watching the season 4 of Sabrina the Teenage Witch right now, where they're wrapping it up. I actually love it a lot because when it was on as a show on Nickelodeon, I thought it was really stupid,
very stupid and campy.
Very campy, very stupid. I watched it enough to know who the main girl was, and to know that the cat talked, and that the two ants were witches, and they were kind of silly, and that was about it. That was about all I knew. I didn't watch it enough to really get any information from it other than that. Now, one of the things that they did in season 4, because this is the final season, is the whole show is Netflixed up. It's a little more dangerous, a little more risque, a little more topic heavy, a little more blood and gore and some nakedness, here and there. But it's a more grown up version of Sabrina, obviously. Well, not to spoil the entire thing, but there's a moment in season 4 where they have a split of a character into two characters, and it's going to destroy the known universe, because you can't split a person into two things and have them create a paradox. So they have to basically kick one of them out, or one of them has to volunteer to leave and go into a parallel universe where it's going to make everything supposedly settle down. And in this, she goes into this mirror. It's Sabrina, just kind of point that out there. She goes into this mirror, and when she comes to the other side, she's in her room, but it's not her room. There's a knock at her door, and she's like, yes. And when she turns around, it's the original ants from the show. And they go, Sabrina, what are you up to? We're just having something
Oh,
to eat.
so they paid homage to the original.
And there's a laugh track behind it where they say a joke, and there's a ha ha ha, ha. She goes, which I thought was hilarious. I'm not done with it. I think I'm on season. I think I just finished episode like 6 or 7, and there's like 8 of them in the series. But anyway, it's a cute show. It's if you ever watch Riverdale, it's kind of on the Riverdale tip, but Riverdale was done by CW, which of course has to be TV friendly. This was not. This was all Netflix, so it's a little more dangerous, a little more risque than Riverdale. Right. And they do make comments to Riverdale all the time about, yeah, we don't go over there. That's that town. They do go to Riverdale during this, one of the seasons, but it's I don't know. It's camp. It's still campy. It's still silly. It's still comic booky, but it's more of a dangerous comic book kind of thing. So anyway, I'm enjoying that. I also watched a thing with my wife on Disney Plus. They bought the rights to National Geographic, and there's a show on there. Remember Bob Oden? Was it Bob? Wow, what's his name? He was a TV journalist during the Gulf War, and he got blown up for ABC. He was in like Saudi Arabia or something, and got blown up inside of a tank. Bob, it's not Odenkirk. That's a different guy. Bob. Anyway, the show's called Rogue. I wonder if I could find it on my Disney Plus on my phone. I don't want to be wrong on this, and I didn't look it up. I wasn't planning on talking about it. But he goes on an adventure with his oldest son. Let's see. Rogue Trip. Rogue Trip. Bob Woodruff.
Woodruff, okay.
Yeah.
Name sounds familiar, but
I don't remember. Well, the videos of him, like the showing the flashback, is he had this part of his skull completely caved in, and he looked like he should have died, and it's a miracle that he didn't die. But like for a long time, he had to wear the big white helmet around his head. He was a war correspondent and was there just to interview people or whatever, and he was in a tank whenever they ran over an IUD or got shot at or something, and he almost died, and he made it. He lived. Well, Bob Woodruff now, it has a son who's, in his 20s and is a photojournalist. He doesn't interview people. He doesn't want to go to combat zones. He takes really good photos, but they go kind of on a world tour of Africa and Europe and parts of Asia that, most people don't go to. And it's really good. It's really done well. They go to a lot of places that are normally considered war torn. And one of the ones that really surprised me was Pakistan. They go there, and, there's several areas they go to where they're talking about how they're really trying to increase their tourism, and how they want the rest of the world to see that they're not a place of war, that it's, they're recovering, they're trying to recover, they just need opportunity. And anytime a camera's around, everybody hams up to the camera and they want people to see how happy they are and excited they are for people to be there. But just the natural beauty of the place, it looks unbelievably gorgeous. And there was a scene there where apparently the queen years ago went there, and she said that to her it was the Swiss of the West. The mountains, just snow-capped mountains, and just rolling mountains upon mountains, and these glacial lakes, and gorgeous area, just beautiful. And they met with tons and tons of people where they were like, hey, we're just trying to make a better life. And several of them have come to the United States and gotten an education at some university and had gone home at some point because they said, I thought my whole life I wanted to be away, but really what I wanted was to learn something that would help my country. So they came back to their home country to try and teach what they had learned or to try and pass it forward to help other people, which was great. But not only that, the communication barriers aren't there. That was one of the things that really surprised me, is that they could communicate with just about anybody speaking English. I made a comment to a friend of mine that I work with who's from the old Czech Republic. He said that he took his wife, Shelly, back home to visit for like a 2-week stint. And they went around to Switzerland and Germany and Hungary and all these countries. And he said, he said, we had a great time. We got to meet a lot of people that had different backgrounds than us. And it was during Oktoberfest, so they had to drink a lot of beer, of course. But I asked him, I said, did Shelly have a hard time communicating with folks? And he said, no, because whenever you live over there, you understand that English is the language of money, and you have to learn to speak English. Otherwise, you can't really compete in a world market. So you're sort of motivated to want to learn to speak English no matter what. And he said, we had a great time. There was nowhere where even if it was listed in their language, English was always listed with it, because they understand that English travelers have money and that they're traveling and they're spending money, and they want to be able to find their way around. So there's always that option. You don't have to be afraid of going to these places, because there's always going to be someone who understands you. And that tended to be the case with Bob Woodruff and his son. Now, there was some areas they went into in some of these episodes where they had to have handlers. I mean, they had a caravan of people in front of them and behind them with armed guards, because they were like, yeah, this area is a little dangerous. We can't show our camera up here. We got to put our camera down. And it was going through some areas that Hepzibah controlled. But for the most part, everyone was excited to be on camera. They wanted to show how profitable they were doing, how friendly they were, how kind they were to one another, how they were rebuilding and trying to make a better life. And it was really nice. There were several instances where there was like a political regime change, and people were excited and they had flags and banners and were talking about that kind of stuff. And Bob turned right into reporter, and he went right up to people and said, so he's like interviewing people. So what's the change here? What does it mean for you? And he's asking questions, whereas his son was like, I really don't want to be confrontational with people, and it makes me uncomfortable. But my dad just right into reporter mode. I mean, was able to just jump in there and say, hey, what do you know about this? What's going on? Can you tell the people at home about this? I'm going to go home and show this to America, and they're, the world will see it. And they would, oh yeah, this is what's going on. This is what's happening. This is what we want. Amazing. It's an amazing show. It's a road trip. I'm gonna write that down because I did want to talk about it. But yeah, I mean, you talk about a guy getting a second chance at life. I mean, for all intents and purposes, he should have been dead on the battlefield at that day, but he didn't. He was able to live, and he's able to continue his life. And every step of that was a moment for him to go, yeah, I want to keep living. I want to keep enjoying this. And that's sort of a lesson for everybody that I think we all miss. We all get into a habit of living our patterns, and we don't take a moment and go, let me go outside today. Let me go sit at the park. Let me go sit on the beach. Let me go to the mountains and put my feet in the water. I mean, little things that when you do them, it sort of refreshes you and changes your outlook on things. But it's something that we're all guilty of overlooking. It could be as simple as, like in the movie Soul, he sits on the side of a New York City bench, and he sees the leaves falling, and he catches one in his hands, and he looks around and sees kids laughing and playing, and it's suddenly that moment of, oh yeah, this is really a beautiful moment. and it's sort of why we're here. But we don't appreciate those things as much as we should. So,
I mean, that kind of reminds me of back in our older days, or younger days, I guess it should be. You were like that. I mean, you kept pails and buckets in your trunk of your car just because you might drive to the beach just to build a castle.
yeah.
And I remember those things, and that you know, you still have that same spirit.
Yeah. Well, and I credit a lot of that to my mom and um, to my dad's parents. They always instilled in me the idea that every moment is precious, whether you realize it or not. And it just depends on how you look at it. So sometimes it's a moment that we spend hanging out together where I'll mentally take a movie in my brain and go, this is a good moment. This is a moment I want to remember. Like it's a sort of a virtual hug in my brain of, you know, I want to remember this. You know, if there's a movie that plays at the end of your life, this is a moment I want to remember.
This is a scene that I want to be poignant.
Yeah. I mean, us waking up that morning and trying to take pictures of the sunrise over the lake. We all did it. We didn't know each other were doing it. we kept passing by each other, even though we didn't know we were doing it. But that was a beautiful sunrise, and you know, it was just funny that we were all taking photos and videos of the sunrise because it was so pretty, and we didn't even know each other were doing it. And then when we talked about it, it was like, that really was a beautiful sunrise.
It was gorgeous. I went back to sleep after that. That's why y'all didn't know, because I'm not a get up early kind of person, but I was up early for a moment and I saw it and I was like, I gotta have a picture. Then I went back to sleep.
Yeah. Well, I'm not a get up early kind of person right now either.
It's fun, isn't it?
No,
of course. You think your brain thinks, what could I have done? What could I have gotten done?
Well, and honestly, that comes from mom. Mom was always let's get up and do the things we have to do so that we can enjoy the rest of the day. So like her thing was, because she worked the schedule she worked, if she was home on a Saturday, it was, let's knock this out before lunch. We'll have lunch and then you're free to do whatever afterwards. Okay. So if she got you up at 7:30, it was like, okay, at 7:30, let's go. Well, I stayed up till 1:00. Well, that was on you. Come on. Yeah. You knew I was going to wake you up at 7:30. So the next time you go to bed earlier, okay. But you knock everything out. And by lunchtime, she's like, right, go do whatever you want to do. It's like, okay, cool. I mean, but it was laundry and it was dusting and it was whatever had to be done, mow the grass, whatever, get grocery shopping done, whatever the thing was, we did it and got it done. And I sort of stuck with that sort of, discipline as I got older. But here lately with nothing to do, I mean, I technically have nothing to do until my next doctor's appointment. So other than, personal responsibilities of things we have planned, it's like, okay, well, good night. I don't have to necessarily be up at a certain time, so I can just sleep. Without that internal monologue in your brain of going, you got to get up. Don't oversleep now. Listen out for the alarm clock. Without that, you just rest. And I've been resting. So.
Well, good. You need some rest after many, many years of not resting.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
I mean, it's not ideal, obviously, but it's something that I think is going to be much better for you long run.
Yeah, and I'm thinking that it's going to help me realize that I need to take better care of myself moving forward.
Hush. These dogs, I swear, they bark at everything that just walks by the door.
Uh-oh. They're trying to protect you.
Yes, they're so vicious.
Yeah. Yeah, we went to see my wife's parents this weekend, and they're getting older. And it's interesting to see how they look at things as they get older and how they process things a little differently now than they used to. One of the cool things was being able to take Jackson, which is their great grandson, and spending some time with him. They were able to play some games with him and show him some stuff that he's 4, so he was really responsive, and he was like, oh, this is cool, and of course, being the center of attention, that's always fun when you're a kid. But he did really good on the trip. On the way down there, we got to hear Frosty the Snowman, like the extended 4-hour remix.
Oh Lord,
that was exciting. So that's why that's why I made a decision to leave at 4:00 in the morning coming home, because we were like, he can sleep on the way home. My poor wife, though, I don't think she got 2 hours of sleep that night before she said, all right, let's get in the car. And I was like, "Can we drive?" She's like, "I got it." I was like, okay. So I stayed awake to talk to her the whole way, even though we were trying to let him sleep. We still sort of talked at a lower tone, just to kind of make sure that he was sleeping. And he did sleep for most of the way home. And then when he woke up, he was still a little groggy, so that we got home without any Frosty the Snowman. So that was great. One day I'm going to look back at that and go, man, I sure missed hearing him sing Frosty the Snowman off key.
Yeah, at some point, but it was enough for now.
Yeah. Well, my kids, now that they've grown up, one of the things that I remember the most and miss the most is when I used to go pick them up from daycare. I'd work a full day, and then I'd go to pick them up from daycare. And if they were playing on the playground, which they often did whenever the weather was nice, one of them would see me from across the way, and they would drop everything they're doing. Daddy's here. And they would both, kind of run at the same speed and jump into my arms, and I'd hug them and throw them in the air and ask them about their day. And I miss that. I mean, now they're older, and they're little turds, and they're big, they're big turds. They're humans. They're adults now, and I can't exactly do that anymore. They don't get excited when they see me like they used to, and it's just different, And I wanted them to break the curse of having a kid at 20 years old, like I did, like my mom did, like I'm sure her mom did. And they've broken that curse, but now it's like, okay, you're getting older. They want to start a family or something. I mean, what's going on here? Are you going to be a kid forever? Or I don't know. It's weird. I know for a lot of my friends, like Josh West is my only other friend that had a kid. And it's so unusual that you, Rodney, and Greg all decided, or not necessarily decided, but just haven't had kids.
Well, I did. I don't know about them, because I think Rodney was a kid.
Well, but you've sort of been a stepdad, even though you're not technically a stepdad. I mean,
Well, yeah. I mean, I've done everything I could. Like, I mean,
I'll helped.
I'll step in if asked to.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I kind of say hands off on the whole.
I mean, you and Chrissy have been together for how long?
10 years.
10 years. That's a commitment. That's a time period. Put a stamp on it. I mean,
Bailey was 12, so I went through the teenage years, and
for all intents and purposes, Bailey's like, yeah, I mean, she probably calls you her stepdad. I mean,
she probably does. I mean, and like Chrissy always she always corrects me whenever I say something about I don't have kids or whatever the case may be. Yes, I do. Technically, I have a kid. Yes. I helped raise her a little bit, but I didn't have a lot to do with it. Her mother and herself actually raised her. I mean, like I said, I was very lucky. She was not one of these wild, crazy kids. She was very self-motivated. I mean, just an amazing young lady.
Yeah. But it still takes a little something extra. And when you put that time and effort into things, you kind of like, you're still always hoping and praying that they turn out okay. And you're like, I want to give a little bit of something of me to you to help you become something more than I did. I mean, I want to say that's sort of the hope for every parent or every person.
Well, I would think that's the case. I mean, that's
Yeah.
what I tell Chrissy every time, she's missing her and all this kind of stuff. I'm like, look, you did an amazing job raising her. You did exactly what you busted your tail, letting her, able to have a better life than you did. And she is going to, in turn, graduate college and have a better life. And then she's going to take care of, not take care of you, but she's going to be looking out for you for a change instead of you always looking out for her like you have for her whole life.
Or, I guess on the bigger scale is she's going to be able to take care of herself in a way that is so much easier than what we went through.
Then the life, she saw how her mom struggled, and she doesn't want to do that. She wants to have a life. And so I'm like, that's a testament to her mother. Same thing with my mom to some degree. I saw her, work her butt off and, try to do better for us. She, just to have, a little bit better life than she did. And I moved on a little bit better. I mean, I didn't finish college, but my life is better than it should have been.
I worry that I broke my kids. I worry that I worked too hard, and they saw that and went, I don't want anything to do with that. And then just
I mean, there's a key to that, but yes, but at the same time, I mean, same thing. I mean, Chrissy at one point was working 3 jobs. I mean, she didn't see her daughter hardly, all day long. And she did that for at least a year or two. She was working 3 jobs to make money to be able to afford to have a life and a place for her to, you know, call home.
Yeah.
And Bailey saw that. And now I know that, you know, she's got that inside of her, that she doesn't want to live that way, and she doesn't want to have to raise kids that way.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure that, like that, you know, yeah, your kids are out there and they don't have kids, but I think that, I don't think you broke them, man. I think anything, like I said with my mom, I mean, you know, even though we had our differences and things went the way they did after a while, I respect the woman. I respect her a lot. I mean, she sacrificed a lot to give us what we did have.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Time will tell. We'll have to see how that works out. But, you know, the year 2020 was tough, but it was also a blessing in a lot of ways because I did get to spend time with people that I didn't think I would be able to do. You know, we obviously had to change plans because of not only the eye injury, my wife's work situation changed. A global pandemic shut down a lot of things. But, you know, we were sitting in the living room last night watching this guy, the Tim Tracker, he lives down in the Florida area going to, you know, Disney and stuff. And we had a trip planned for December that we had to cancel. Well, part of that was we have a Disney points card and we were saving up points, and those points translates into dollars. And my wife kind of kicked around the idea of, she goes, you know, what if we went on a time when it's slow and we just stayed at one of the cheap resorts? And I was like, what if? I mean, we could probably have a trip paid for that we've been saving up for. And it's not the trip we wanted, but it could be a trip for us to kind of get away while we can't work, there's no work. So I don't know. We're kicking around that idea. It is a possibility. We'll have to see. We'll have to see what happens. I would really like to see the Star Wars land in person. I mean, I've seen enough videos on it that I want to see it in person. I mean,
yeah, I was never one that wanted to see Disney. I was never one of those kind of like, I just been amazed by it kind of thing.
Yeah.
But of course, they opened Star Wars Land, and now I have it's a bucket list kind of thing. Like I have to go there.
I want to ride both rides. I want to ride the Rise of Resistance and the Smuggler's Run. I mean, I want to be in the Millennium Falcon, and I want to, you know, I asked my wife, I said, do you think I'll get in trouble for licking the Millennium Falcon? She goes, I don't think you're going to get that close. And I went, you're not going to get that close.
Unless there's a force shield around it, I'm getting to touch the Millennium Falcon.
I mean, you know, I'm just saying. But
now, did you notice? And I am far from a boat fan. I don't like cruises. I don't like being able to not see land. It freaks me out. But they are getting ready to resume the boat trips, and it's a 2-day cruise. It's a Star Wars boat cruise.
Oh.
You go into your room, and your room is set up like you have like clothes
like
already.
A starship.
Like it's not just that, but like you open up the closet and there's clothes like set up for like the trip.
Oh, cool.
So like you dress in gear, and yeah, I told Chrissy, I said, I'm not a cruise fan, but for 2 days, I think I might could do it.
Yeah, and they're still setting up that resort that's going to be completely Disney. Star Wars themed. Like, you're not going to see the outside. You're going to feel like you're on a starship the entire time. And basically, it's a time period setup, and they have scripts involved, and you're basically going to play an active part of being a character in the storyline once you're on the ship. And your room is set up a certain way, and it's like a choose your own adventure, but like real life kind of thing, like a dinner movie theater, but you're sleeping in the place for 2 days.
Wow, that sounds awesome.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, tell me more.
So you need me to walk around in a Jedi robe and hold a lightsaber? Sure, no problem.
Okay, yeah. Oh, I did want to talk to you about the fact that there is a lot of fan type stuff coming out with Ahsoka Tano and the popularity of Ahsoka Tano. And I don't know if you've noticed it, but on my feed now, I get these advertisements for like pictures and posters and action figures and stuff like that. And I saw one today. It was this very beautiful Japanese style artwork, samurai type artwork, but she's got this blade backwards and she's got this blade forward, but it goes under her arm and it comes out in a weird part that looks like it goes through her. I'm like, you totally screwed that up, man. What the if you went through all that effort to draw it, you just totally screwed that up, man. And it's so off-putting that it's the correct way instead of the reverse way. I'm just like, you could have just reversed the hand and then you'd have been fine. Like you just I don't know. It's one of those things my eye immediately goes to, and I'm like, nope, not buying it. Nope, forget it. Yeah. So I wrote down Prom on here just because it's something I watched that was on Netflix. It's really horrible, but also funny. It's horrible yet funny. It's got Meryl Streep, Nicole Kidman, and James Corbin, and what's his name? The Keenan Michael Key or something like that.
Okay.
So it's a musical. She's supposed to be basically her going to her high school prom that they decided to have years later. Not her prom. Someone's prom. This girl posted that they were canceling prom because they weren't allowing same-sex couples to the prom, and she's gay and she wants to take her girlfriend. And so the town is having a big committee, and Keenan Michael Key is the principal, and she's supposed to be basically herself, and Nicole Kidman's supposed to be like a showgirl dancer, extra in the background kind of person. And then James Corbin's supposed to be this producer, singer, songwriter guy. And they all decide to take a stand by coming to the prom and basically trying to make the prom happen and force these people in small town Indiana go along with things. And there's lots of moments where they poke fun at people who live in those areas. And then there's moments where they poke fun at themselves for being so thinking that they're doing all high and mighty, save the rest of the people from their backwards thinking. And they make fun of themselves as being, how do we think we're so full of crap that we could do something like this? And if we're being honest about it, we're doing it because we feel crappy about our own lives and we're trying to make something good look out of it. I mean, there's a bunch of poking fun in all directions at each other and at the situation and at the outcome, that I actually enjoyed it. It's a really, it falls into that category of crappy movies that I actually love.
Wow, really?
Yeah,
because that's a good list of good movies.
And he is the principal guy is he says, at a certain point he has to tell her, I'm a straight guy who just happens to like musicals. I mean, it's just is what it is. It's an escape for me. And I went, I like musicals. My mom, when I was younger, used to get me to watch, Barbra Streisand musical movies and The Music Man and, Fiddler on the Roof and stuff like that. And I love those movies. But it wasn't cool to talk about when he went to school. It was like, you like musicals? I'm like, yeah, kind of.
Yeah, I was never a big musical fan.
That's something you don't feel comfortable telling other dudes until you can punch them in the face. I'm just once you get big enough to punch other dudes in the face, you're like, yeah, I like musicals. So what? Yeah. So
that's kind of like The Rock and his Taylor Swift love.
He loves him some T Swift now.
He does.
Like, you got something to say about it?
When you're that big, you can pretty much like whatever you want, and nobody's going to say anything about it.
Right. Yeah. And he was the Tooth Fairy. You can't ever go back from the Tooth Fairy. Yeah. So anyway, that's probably a good place to stop. Got to save something for the next episode. Thank you for doing this. Sorry about your nose.
Hey, it's fine now, but thank you. I just got to take care of, we always talk about the fact we're getting older, but yet I don't really feel like changes. And then things like this happens and I'm like, oh yeah, there is changes and it needs to be changes. Well,
I'm going to make a change. And I know that I'm always shitty about people who say their New Year's resolution is to blah, 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 and I don't like the resolution idea. But I got on my scale this morning and my scale didn't tell me how much I weighed. It just goes, get off me.
Well, that's the blessing with this. Before the nosebleed, and I know it doesn't seem weird, but before the nosebleed, I was around about 216, which is still very high for me. I mean, I for years I never touched 200, and then lately the last 6 months I've been about 220. And I got on the scale after this whole situation because I'd lost my appetite for a little bit, and lost a lot of blood and ended up being 210. And so now, the other day I got on the scale and I'm actually at 200.1.
Wow.
So I'm almost to the point where I don't want to eat just because I want to see that say 199 again. But then you got Greg talking about his Bloody Mary bar on New Year's Day. Did you see that setup?
Yeah, that was pretty impressive.
Yeah, I was like, wow, that was awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, I always think I do good at grilling until I watch him grill, and I went, crap. I got to get better.
No, you got some great. You do great with that stuff. I mean, you probably of the four of us, I'd say five, but Rodney doesn't grill. He just eats like a machine. But you probably done the best pork butt I've seen out of all groups of us.
Yeah,
you got it down to a science to the point of it. Like, I mean, you're helping other people on the web pages. I've noticed, like, cook it to this, wrap it at this.
What was funny was during this New Year's, is it New Year's or Christmas? I got a thing from my nephew, Dallas. He's a dad now, and he's got a pellet grill, and he's grilling, and apparently he sent a message to Dolores and said, I had a problem with my grill and I thought I'd look up YouTube to find out the answer. And I'm scrolling and there's this guy. he's like, and I listened to his video and I did what he said and it worked. And I was like, hey, glad I could help.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah. It's kind of unexpected, but he's like, tell him I appreciate the video. It really helped. I was like, wow. That's really.
So there you go. There it is in perfect example of what you did, how it's changing the world.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the main thing I'm trying to do though is
build community. I know that's your theme.
No, but teach everybody. Like, everybody can do something. You don't have to do everything. Just do something. Whatever it is, pass that information along. I heard a comedian one time say that he realized that the secret to life was learn to do something really well, teach someone how to do that thing, and then get out of the way. Because that's basically it. And I mentioned that to somebody, and they were like, "That's full of shit. That's not the But okay, whatever. But that's kind of the point.
It makes a lot of sense to me.
I mean, if the human race is to go forward, that's sort of our purpose: is to learn to do something really well, teach someone that thing, and then learn when to get out of the way and let them do it. Make it their own. So, I did want to talk about football, but we'll do that on the next episode because, we'll do that right here. Screw it. I don't care. Real quick. Okay. Texas University.
Yes.
They fired Tom Herman after he won 4 bowls in a row. They said, get out of here. Still owing him $106 million, and then just hired Steve Sarkisian to be their head coach.
And again, I believe in giving everybody second chances. I understand, but does anyone remember his last head coaching job?
He was a horrible head coach.
He was they basically almost left him in Arizona.
He had two losing season teams that he got kicked out of. I mean, he's a good offensive coordinator. There's a lot of people that are good coordinators that just aren't good head coaches, and I think Steve Sarkisian is one of those. He's a great offensive coordinator, but he's not a great head coach. But how much money does Texas have that they're like, yeah, we'll just eat that $106 million from Tom Herman?
Oh, Texas is one of the most profitable programs. I mean, like you have the SEC network and the ACC network.
They have the Texas network.
Yeah, the Texas has its own Longhorn network. Like, it's not the Big 10 network or the Big 12 network. It's the Longhorn network.
Yeah. Well, still,
I mean,
that's a lot of money to be on the hook for.
That is very much.
Especially for a guy that's won you 4 bowls straight,
And that team has a very, very bright future right now. I mean, they look amazing in their bowl game.
Yeah. I mean, what else do you want of a guy? But whatever. I guess they want the national championship. Nothing would do them but then to get rid of Mac Brown. And look, Mac Brown's back at UNC kicking butt. So,
yep.
There you go, Texas.
That was the one thing that I didn't like that Mac Brown chose to go to the ACC. But yeah, no, he's gonna recruit and he's gonna bring talent.
I fell asleep before that game ended. Did they end up winning?
No, they lost, I believe.
Okay, that was a heck of a game. That was probably the best game I've watched all season, and I fell asleep before it ended, and I didn't think to look it up the next day. A&M played great. Kellen Mond is going to play in the NFL. That dude, holy crap, what an arm! I watched him on several plays do the Aaron Rodgers, just that little wrist flick, and it goes 50 yards. You're like, what? How did he do that? You know, and it's just a wrist flick, but it's gone. You know, and you're like, holy, that's a Sunday arm right there, buddy. Jeez, that's something. I don't know if you teach that. I think you're kind of just born with that.
Well, on a quick note on that one, we're talking about college teams. I am very, very, very excited to start the Beamer era. Here in South Carolina.
I like the fact that they've incorporated Connor Shaw into the coaching roles.
Right. Well, he's not going to be an on-field role, but he's going to be a vital role on the off-field, more recruiting, I believe.
Yeah.
And he's going to help with player development kind of stuff. But what I'm really excited about is the fact that Beamer is going out there and getting people that are good recruiters, great guys, but also have a love for that block C on the chest.
Yeah.
Guys who grew up here in South Carolina and have a little bit more of a feeling for South Carolina than just, it's a job.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm really excited about.
That's what it takes. I mean, shout out to Clemson. They went down.
No shout out at all.
Ohio State looked incredible.
Dumbo needs to keep his mouth shut.
Tell you what,
they whooped them.
That was a whipping. Jeez. Looking forward to seeing Alabama and Ohio State crush each other. Although I do agree with Dabo in the fact that Ohio State shouldn't have even been there with only 6 games. They were a great team. It was great to watch them compete, but I mean, if you're playing 6 and your other teams play 11, why are you both considered eligible to play? I think they're going to have to do something different next year and have like a standard before the season starts saying you have to play at least 8 games or something like that. They're going to have to do some clarification on that moving forward. But I mean, obviously you're going to be more well rested and have less injuries and everything else if you've only played half the games as your opponent. So, but still, terrific win for Ohio State. That was awesome to watch.
Well, now you understand why they're in the playoff every year, because they play a high school schedule every year, so they don't play anybody. It's basically like not playing a game.
Well, I mean,
in the ACC,
in my opinion, Ohio State's kind of in the same boat. I mean, who do they play in that's ranked?
Well, now
sometimes Penn State.
This year was different because of the scheduling, but normally the Big Ten usually has a solid schedule.
Well, I mean, this year the Big Ten did great in bowls. I mean, so I don't know.
Usually, oh goodness, somebody's walking by the house. Sorry.
That's all right.
But yeah, usually the Big Ten's got you.
This is the way.
No. This is the way.
I tried really hard to find a mask, but I couldn't find one in time. Apparently, people bought them for Christmas. Go figure.
Why would they not? Well, this is going to be my year. This is 2021, the book of Boba. Yeah, but Baby Yoda doesn't come back till 2022.
I was going to sit him down where you could see him, but I don't have a little shelf at the right height. That'd be cute if I did the whole podcast and he's just like right here on the corner.
That would be awesome. You have to get him a little stand so he can sit up on the stand.
I may build a little something to have him stand right there. So you just see his head, and I won't talk about it the entire time. But what is that? What is what? We're coming out of the side.
I like that better. The other side was better, actually.
The side the light catches his head a little easier.
Yeah, I like that side. I like that a lot right there. That's perfect.
Yeah. I could do something. But yeah. All right.
Or do you want a string hanging down from the top?
I don't know. Would that look weird? Did you make it out?
A little bit lower. There you go. Yeah, right about there.
It'd be like mistletoe.
Actually, I still think the side over here on this side is best.
Like, right.
Yeah.
If you guys are watching this on YouTube, you're getting the full effect. If you're listening to this, you're like, what the hell are they doing? I'm playing with Baby Yoda Pez dispenser and showing him off on the screen, where it'd be kind of funny if he just happened to be at while I'm doing the podcast. I never mention it. Anyway, I'm gonna wrap this up. I know I've said that more than once, but I mean it this time, dadgummit. So thank you for doing this. We'll keep doing it if you're up for it.
Hey, right now I'm off on every Monday, so we'll keep doing it as long as you can.
All right, cool. Thank you for doing this. Appreciate it. Everybody who's listening, please remember to rate, review, subscribe. It does help the channel if you give us a like. Let us know if you want to be on the podcast. I got Zoom. We can add a third person or a fourth person or whatever. We generally talk about Star Wars, so and whatever else is going on. It could be anything. It can be nothing. It could be a Pez dispenser with Baby Yoda's face on it, with Grogu's face on it.
Yay!
You never know. So please rate, review, subscribe, share with your friends, and as always, keep campy.
I want you guys to give me more likes. Give me more